Welcome to the Fit for Halter podcast. We're here to bring practical content and community to the amateur halter exhibitor. I'm your host, Amy Zabel, and I interview people from across the halter horse industry. We'll learn new techniques, hear about the hottest products, and get to know one another. If you grow in your knowledge and we gain more exhibitors in the ring, this has been a success. It's a laid-back environment. Prepare to be inspired and maybe take some notes. Welcome, friends. We are trying something new today. So launching a new series called the Q&A series. And probably 4 times a year, we will bring the guests. You get to ask the questions. So my husband and I are the first guinea pigs to try this out. So thanks for your questions from Facebook, Instagram. Some of you texted me or sent direct messages. So we appreciate it. We have not rehearsed these questions, or the answers, I should say. We've looked through the questions. They're not in any certain order, just kind of as they came in. And hopefully what we have to share is helpful to you in your amateur journey. So first question. I'd love to hear a discussion about keeping the halter horse happy, travel tips, and preventing ulcers. So, you want to take it?
I can take that. By the way, my name is Scott, and I'm her husband. Nice to meet you all. For our horse, I think this is going to depend a lot on your horse, your situation. I know for ours, we get him out of the stall twice a day at least. For us, that means a walk in the morning, just to get him out and moving, and then also his workout in the afternoon. So that seems to keep him fairly content in his day-to-day, as far as keeping him happy when we're trailering or going to shows. He likes to have hay in his trailer with him. He doesn't tend to do that too well. He'll tear up the bag or the net, but that does keep him happy. If it's a long trip, we also stop pretty regularly to give him water. He's a really good drinker, a really good traveler. So we are like to feed into that. Anything else to add?
Our trailer is not super big, but I think he has enough room for him. If he grows any bigger, we might be squeezing him in there, but he has plenty of bedding. Making sure that he has hay, making sure that he gets water on breaks when we stop for gas. Like specifically when we traveled to Fort Worth last year, every time we would stop for gas, we would hang out for 20 minutes or so under the shade of the gas station pump area. Give him water. He would drink a quarter bucket, half a bucket. On that trip in particular, we gave him grain on the way as well, just small feedings, making sure that he has hay in front of him so he's content. And the other piece of the question was about preventing ulcers. So for us, I think like we've not ever had him scoped. So we don't know if he has ulcers, if we are successful in preventing those completely. However, we do a couple of things to create a best case scenario. So all the travel tips that we mentioned, last year we went to 11 or 12 shows. This year we're hoping for like 15-ish. So last year we traveled about 6,500 miles, and from the beginning of the show season, we had him on GutX by 100X Equine, and we keep his schedule pretty consistent. And like Scott mentioned, we do a pretty regular schedule when we're at a horse show as well. We try to anyway, walk him a couple times a day, hand walk him. And then if he's at a place long enough, we'll include workouts in the schedule. So do we know for sure that he has ulcers or that we're preventing them? Obviously not completely, but we're pretty confident in his general day-to-day demeanor. We don't see any typical ulcer behavior coming from him. And then, like I said, we give the GutX. We feed on a consistent schedule, and he gets the same feed all the time. So, we're hoping that is successful.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, we don't know. We've talked about this several times of pulling him off of GutX. He's also on another Hunter X product. And honestly, he's been on that since we've had him and started showing him. So whether it's working or not, it's one of those things. Some of this is just trial and error. We take the best information we can get, and then base our decisions on that. And for you, it may be different. For us, it seems to be working, so we're kind of afraid in the middle of show season, especially to make a change. So consistency, she mentioned, and we've heard that from several guests on the show. Consistent feed program and consistent workouts, and just consistency in their activity and diet.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Who decides where you go out to eat at horse shows when you're at horse shows? This is an important question. Sometimes it's really late at night. Sometimes borderline hangry or full on hangry, tired. And I think generally in the marriage situation, it's not an easy decision anyway. Then you go to a horse show, you don't really know what's around. So who actually decides where we go to eat?
You said it. We're usually hangry and it's usually late. So if somebody has a suggestion, we're usually all in.
Right. In fact, I remember we went to Kentucky last year for Eastern National Championship, and somebody had recommended a Mexican restaurant that was near our Airbnb, and we ate at that place multiple times because it was amazing. I don't know the name of it, but you're headed to Lexington this summer. You need to get the Mexican food that's near the showgrounds. Taco place, Velvet Taco in Fort Worth.
Oh, yeah, that's solid. Sounds really sketch, the name, but it's fabulous.
So, yeah, it's usually a group effort. We eat anything. We like lots of food. We like food in general. So we'll go mostly anywhere.
Yeah. Our MO is if we're out and about, we like to go to places we don't get around here.
Oh, that's true.
So that's just,
we live in rural central Illinois and we don't have many options. So when we go somewhere else, there's a lot of new stuff. So yeah, we're pretty easy to please.
We are.
Next question. How did you get started on this journey? So we've both been horse lovers for most, if not all of our lives. We've got each of us probably 40 years of either horse ownership or doing that as a hobby or even career. So the specific journey that we're on now, we're showing at APHA shows. We have a Kentucky bred horse, and you have to pick, if you're going to get money for points, you have to pick one association or the other. So we've committed to American Paint Horse Association shows, and we bought the horse that we have as a weanling in October of 2022. Rewind back even farther. It's been a dream of mine to have a halter bred horse and show at breed shows for a lot of years. Have a horse at home that was basically retired, kind of a babysitter, pull her out to go to open shows and stuff. And she's the one who really sparked the flame for showing halter. So I waited a long time, a lot of years, and finally in probably 2021, somewhere around there, started going to shows again just to watch and kind of get my head back in the game. And then we took the horse shop. So let's be honest. So, so we took the plunge in October of 22, bought a weanling that had just finished at the World Show. And we showed him at the Color Breed Congress and then brought him home. And he's been home ever since. We showed last year, like I said, we showed 11-ish shows last year. And then we're trying to get in about 15 this year. So, yeah, we had talked for several years about showing a breed show, showing at this level. And we thought as we talked, we always thought it was a someday, maybe when we retire. We're both still working full time. And then, in fall, early winter of 22, God just put pieces in place and
folks in our lives. And we bought a halter horse, this halter horse sight unseen, and thus started our journey. That's been quite a ride, as we'll probably talk about a little more.
Yeah.
But it's been in our blood. We both had horses prior to being married. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we got here.
Okay. Next question. Do you share the workload and prep for the shows being a husband and wife team? So absolutely. I don't know how we specifically divvy that up, but I think part of it is based on our work schedules. He is done with work at the end of the day, like an hour to an hour and a half before I am. So he gets started on workouts in the late afternoon. And then by the time I get home, I step in and catch up, whether it's stalls, feeding. So as you imagine, after a workout, we do leave our horse in the cross ties or tied outside, depending on the weather, with his neck sweat on. And he hangs out for a while. And that's when we learn later and give him a bath, finish up, feed, close up the barn for the night. So all of those pieces we divide and conquer, really, including the morning chores as well. Prep for horse shows. He lifts the heavy stuff.
We've tried. As in most things in our marriage, she would prefer to be more scheduled and organized, and I'm kind of a more take it as it comes. We've tried to schedule, if you will, chores of who's going to do morning chores, who's going to do evening chores. But honestly, it's just whoever is here at the time and awake, available when the certain chores need done. Again, we try to keep pretty consistent with times of feeding, and stalls get picked, twice a day.
Yeah.
We actually have my father is on the rolls for feeding lunch when we're not around.
Yes, he's our beloved unpaid employee.
Right.
Who feeds lunch.
So they do get fed 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I know we've heard from others who say that's 3 or 4 times a day is better than twice a day, or the more you can feed, the more consistent again.
Yeah.
So it's a divide and conquer. It's not perfect, but it's again, as we talk about passions and what you want to give your life to, if it's worth your time, if it's worth your passion, then it's worth making time for it, and it seems to work well for us. We don't argue too much about it. It seems to works out pretty well.
It does.
We don't
really.
Yeah.
So a couple of things specific to prep for the shows. The rhythm that we have for getting ready for shows includes, we try to do a week before the show is when we clip his legs, the white part on his legs. And then before we go to a show, the night before we leave is when we do his ears and all the clipping on his head. So muzzle, ears, nose, all that stuff. So currently he's typically clipping the white on his legs and around his cornet band a week before or a couple of days before. It's just as advanced as we can get it in case there's clipper marks. And then the day before we leave, the night we're usually packing, like if it's a Saturday show and we're packing Thursday night to leave Friday morning, then Thursday night is when we're doing the final clipping. So I usually do most of the clipping on his face, muzzle, jaw, bridle path, all that. And then we have to twitch him to do his ears because he's taller. I used to do his ears and I would struggle because I couldn't reach. And so now I hold the twitch, he clips the ears. And so really it's a very much shared prep, because while I'm clipping muzzle and other things, he's loading the trailer, and we don't bathe till we get to the horse show. And yeah, so we'll probably go into more detail as far as what happens at the horse show, but our workload and prep for shows is definitely shared and seems to work out pretty well for us.
Yep. As we said, she's a little more organized, so she's got a checklist
Oh,
that
right.
that so we don't forget to
The
throw
horse
something in
packing
the
list,
trailer.
the people packing
Yeah,
list.
what needs to be done on the horse, what we need to throw in for us, for
Yeah.
the horse into the trailer. So it also will vary depending on if it's a, she said it's a day show on Saturday where we're driving down Saturday morning, coming home Saturday, or if we're going for the weekend.
Yeah. Did you find it challenging to figure out what to wear? Do you find it challenging to figure out what to wear for each show?
I'm guessing that's directed at me.
No, I'll take that one.
Really.
So,
pass it off.
Yes, most definitely. I feel like it's challenging in general to find clothes for the horse shows. We don't have Western stores in central Illinois, out in the middle of nowhere. We literally don't have not only a Western store, but a Western store that sells show clothes. So we have a Western store about an hour and a half away. They'll shape a hat. They've got boots, but they used to have show clothes. They don't anymore. So we're in a desert as far as show supplies and clothes goes. So what I have found is I get, depending on the level of show, like for the World Show, I wore dress pants, and those came from Kohl's. And blazer, one of the blazers came from the Goodwill store, and the other one came from Old Navy. And then I try to find the button-down shirts, like cinch shirts. I like those. I get a lot of inspiration from looking at people's pictures on Facebook of what they're wearing at the various levels of shows. So I looked at a lot of people's pictures last year, prior to the World Show, to see what people were wearing at the bigger shows. Last year I wore pants to the state shows as well, and this year decided to wear jeans. So currently wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, or jeans, button-down shirt, and a blazer. And my color palette is kind of small because of my own personal preference. Plus, I try to wear colors that look good with our horse. And then, yeah, I don't have very many accessories. So I think the bigger challenge is not necessarily what to wear, but having a supply of options, because I don't like to wear the same thing all the time. So challenging in several ways, I guess. Next question. How much do I need to budget monthly or yearly to be able to show competitively at the breed show level? So that's kind of a loaded question because depends on the show. But let's see, monthly or yearly. We use a spending plan to just map out shows, how much we'll need for different shows, and different purchases that we want to make. So when I think about our showing, when we show at an Illinois show or something at a state level that's relatively close to our house, within probably 2 to 3 hours, it's about $500. Entries, shavings, we get 2 stalls, one for our horse and one for our stuff. We could probably do without the tack stall, but it's really, really helpful to have that extra space so that we don't have stuff in the aisle. That's entries. We only show in 2 classes, right? So we show in the 2-year-old open and the amateur gelding class, office fees, etc. We don't always buy shavings at the facility. It depends on what kind they have, how much they are, and whether or not they require this shavings to be purchased on site. So right now, for us, a show that's an hour and a half from our house, I usually plan on spending $500. Sometimes it's less, but that includes food and gas. And then there's a show that we like to go to that's about 4.5 hours from our house. That one, stalls are a little bit more expensive. And of course, gas, we spend more in gas for that particular location. And that one is $700 to $800, depending on whether we go out to eat a lot, or bring food with us. So the World Show last year, we showed in 6 classes. It was a lot, because we did the gold, the platinum, Breeders' Futurity, Yellow Rose,
and 2 APHA classes.
and the APHA classes. So it was in the thousands.
And we stayed at a hotel.
Oh, right. We stayed at a hotel.
Outside.
Meals. It was a lot. I think,
yeah.
No exaggeration, it was close to $7,000. And it was a 16-hour drive one way. So a lot of gas. We were away from home for over a week. That particular show, we were gone for 10 days. The other thing I factor into that amount, 500, 700 or 800 or 7,000, is a pet sitter, because we still have a horse, a goat, and a dog at home. So we pay our pet sitter as well. So that's like everything that we spend is for a close by overnight show, 5-ish hundred, and 4.5 hours away for us, 5 hours away, 700 to 800, and then the world show. Now, you could probably go to the world show and spend less if you entered less classes, if you spent less time there, or you didn't live as far away. Obviously, those are variables that are different for everybody. Go ahead.
And again, we have our horses at home, so this is
right.
all expenses based on us fitting our horse and trailing our horse and all that. So if your horse is at a trainer, it's going to be different for you. Would you say there's any added expenses for showing competitively when we're not traveling, like at home? Is there more expenses here if we're showing versus if we wouldn't be showing? Like, because we talked about budgeting monthly or yearly to be able to show competitively at the breed show level. You're talking about expenses for the actual show and entries. Is there more expense?
Oh,
if you're showing
in between shows.
Yeah, in between at home.
I mean, the fact that we're showing, we've made purchases like a neck sweat.
We keep shoes on his front feet, so that's a minor added expense. Maybe you have that or wouldn't have it.
Well, but how we do it, like, we would probably have to get shoes on his front feet no matter what if we're working them out. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like there's, clothes, I guess, would be another thing that we pay for in the in-between in order to get to shows. Yeah. And then honestly, to address the word competitively, like to be able to show competitively at the breed show level is dependent on our horse and dependent on our commitment to the quality of feed and the workout schedule. Those are two, multiple, not just two, but many variables that depend, that are different for each person. So maybe you have, I don't know, a horse that might have more or less conformational gaps than our horse has. But you have less time to do workouts. And so maybe your horse doesn't look as fit. Like, there's so many variables. Our horse has structural gaps that maybe somebody else's doesn't. But maybe we show up with a horse that's really fit and really well groomed and really well prepared and stands quietly so that the judges can look at him at his best. I don't know. There's so many variables. Whether or not we are competitive is not just based on his pedigree or the level of fitness. It's all of that put together. So,
yeah, one thing, and this really doesn't speak to cost, but I appreciated when Joe Holman was on and said, these animals, when we're expecting them to show it, when we're taking to a world show, for example, or Congress, as we're approaching the Olympics season, we're asking these horses to perform and to be in top shape. They're world class athletes. So just remember that it's a lot of work. And if you want to compete at that level, it's a lot of work every day. So you have to be committed at some point to say, this is something we want to do and we want to compete at X level. Now, if that level is different, then maybe your investment changes a little bit. But I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of guy. And when it's show season, we keep him in as best of shape as we can. And that means putting in extra hours that we're just committed as a couple to spend.
Right.
So
yeah,
your investment in not only budget, but time is going to be commensurate with your where you desire to show, what level you desire to show at.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, like your ability to show competitively at the breed show level is also very dependent on you. It's not just on your horse. It's your level of commitment and your ability to get the work done. A couple of things come to my mind. One is no matter how good you think your horse is or is not, you don't know who's going to be at the show that day. So you might work as hard as you can and invest as much as you can and feel like you don't measure up. But if you don't go to the show, you're not going to know how you measure up. And you don't know who's going to be in the ring that day. You might have a horse that you think is nicer than yours that's in the same class as you. However, it won't stand still and the judges can't get a good look at it. And good judges will say, I can't evaluate your horse because your horse isn't standing still. Not every horse is going to stand perfectly, right? But I just recently was in a class where my horse was not behaving well at all. And it showed in my results. And by the next class, I went out and we practiced a little bit and my placing got a little bit better. I think because the judges could actually evaluate my horse because he wasn't jacking around. So I think about encouraging you to just go and show because you don't know who's going to be there. The other thing to consider is if you have your horse at a trainer, that's a different budget. And it's not because the trainer's charging you too much. It's because you're paying somebody else to do all the work that you don't have the ability to do or you physically, or you don't have the time. Like there's so many variables that go into it, but your budget's going to look different if you have your horse boarded somewhere, if you're paying somebody else to work your horse, transport your horse. Like just imagine the expenses that you have are the same expenses and then some for your trainer who has a lot more overhead than you do. So lots of variables there, but hopefully that's helpful for you to understand if you have a horse at home that you want to show at the breed level and you're, doing shows that are close by and maybe one big one a year or multiple big ones a year. So, next question, how do you handle negative energy in and out of the pen? So the first thing I thought of when I read that question was like, sometimes the negative energy is like right here. Tired, hungry, need coffee, tired, hungry, need coffee, any of those variables.
Yeah. And we both desire to show at a high level. We both have high expectations, not only of the horse, but of ourselves. So sometimes those don't align. And sometimes she wins, sometimes I win.
Right.
I'll just say that.
Yeah. So that was my first thought was, sometimes there's just negative energy right here. Right. But I think too about negative energy in and out of the pen. So when I'm in the ring, if there's negative energy, it's usually coming from me. I'm frustrated with myself. I'm frustrated with my horse. I'm not frustrated with anybody else in the ring unless they're crowding me or their horse is being ridiculous. That's frustrating. But that's only happened once or twice where somebody else's horse was just completely cutting loose and disrupting everybody else in the ring. Normally you go in and everybody's pretty quiet. They're just trying to do their own thing. So most of the time in the ring, it's negative energy coming from me. Like I said, I'm trying to hurry to get him set up. If I don't pay attention to my placement in the line and I end up the last one into the ring and the judges are immediately around me, then I'm more nervous, which is stupid because they make multiple trips around each horse. And so I need to take my time. But like I said, negative energy in the ring for me is usually my own situation. And then out of the ring, when I think about negative energy, sometimes in conversation with people, they'll complain about how much shows cost, the placings, somebody else's horse, any number of things. And for me, those, I hear what people say, and typically I try not to engage. And if somebody's complaining about how much things cost or the placings or whatever, like there's just so much more to every single situation than one person's opinion of it. For example, how much shows cost. We know that everything is more expensive than it used to be, including our groceries. So I'm paying more for food. I'm paying more for everything in my life right now, including gas. So to get to the horse show, it's more expensive. To you know, stalls, entry fees, all of that. Everybody is having to increase prices to manage. And so I just think when I hear somebody complaining about stuff, I try to resist the temptation to engage in that, and try to remember that there's a lot of variables and circumstances that contribute not only to the situation that they're referring to, but also the person who's bringing that negative energy. Who knows what kind of week they had? Who knows what kind of day they've had? Who knows if they don't have the support that I have, that I'm fortunate enough to have in our marriage and partnership. When we go to the horse shows, if somebody comes by themselves and doesn't have any help, you know, all those things contribute to one person's opinion. And I do my best to not contribute to that.
And this is a hobby. This is something that we love to do. So remember that when you're there, like it can be easy to get caught up in the negative energy. People complain about the judge's perspective or whatever it is. That's something you can't change. If that happens, it's on them, and you take it. I've heard others say, you know, there'll be another horse show next weekend. So if you're constantly feeling that negative energy, it doesn't make it fun for you. It doesn't make it fun for those around you. So remember, it's a hobby. We put a lot of work into this hobby. It's expensive, but it's something we do because we love the animals. We love the camaraderie of the people there. Generally, we love doing something together that's a passion for both of ours.
And I will say the level of negative energy that we experience is pretty minimal. We've encountered incredible people. When we go to horse shows, it feels like a family, which is kind of a risky word for me when I think about the workplace and a lot of other areas that I'm involved in my life. Sometimes family is a negative connotation for people because their own personal family history is not great. But when I go to shows, I really feel like that. Like, these are people who care deeply about us. They're happy to see us. We're happy to see them. We work together. If there's an emergency, everybody pitches in. So honestly, I have not experienced a show or a group of people who I would say their predominant vibe is negative. So, yeah. So next question, do you have any funny stories from showing?
Well, we did thought of something else. Oh, well, maybe she's got a funny one.
It's related.
The show that kind of sticks out to us was Tulsa a year ago, the Pinto Worlds, when we took off from home one morning and very early in the morning and drove to Tulsa, which is 12 hours, 14?
No, 10, 11 maybe.
Okay, 10, 11 hours. So we drove there. Got all unpacked and everything got settled in. And about 10 o'clock that night, or 11 o'clock that night, the sirens went off, and we were alerted that tornadoes were in the area, or high winds, straight winds, actually. So, long story short, if you know what happened there, they ended up canceling the show from that point forward. Signs blew down. We were camped out in the men's bathroom in the barn with our friends and
strangers
and new friends. Everybody brought what food they had, and whatever. So we hung out there, and fortunately, there were minimal injuries to animals and humans there. But again, everybody kind of pitched in to help out. We ended up driving back. They canceled the show early the next day, so we were on our way back at noon the next day. So within 36 hours, we had made a trip to Tulsa, unloaded our horse, got all settled in, ready to show, and we're back home without showing. And that was a whirlwind.
It was a long drive. For nothing.
A long drive.
Well, it wasn't nothing. A lot of good, funny memories.
We did. We got to hang out with some dear friends, and
the part that I was thinking about that was funny about that, you kind of figure out who people are in emergency situations. So the sirens going off, you know how loud the air conditioner is in a trailer, in a living quarters trailer, super loud. I didn't even hear the siren. The guys were out battening down the hatches, and then we all hopped in a truck and we drove to the barn. We were in the air conditioned barn. I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was real low, and every bathroom at the Tulsa facility is a tornado shelter. Sign number one that tornado or Tulsa's kind of sketch. So we go and check on our horses. They were as content as could be. The power was out, so it was dark in there mostly, except for a few emergency lights. We all head into the bathroom, and then you find out who people really are as to what they bring into the bathroom in a tornado situation. So we brought two things: oatmeal raisin cookies, because my mother-in-law makes amazing oatmeal raisin cookies. Item number two, the weather radio. So that's become a joke among us and our friends, that Scott's very prepared. He's kind of a MacGyver-like person, who has multiple tools on his person at any given time, and he's ready for any situation, including the weather radio. So he was monitoring the storm. That has become a joke, but it was just really funny to think about all these people. The lights were out, so we were all huddling in a bathroom. We couldn't see each other. We could hear each other's voices. We're there with our chair. We had chairs, we had cookies, we had the weather radio, and
in the men's bathroom.
Yeah. So that was great. But people came in that were terrified, young kids that were really, really scared. It was a dynamic mix of folks.
I remember walking out to the entrance doors to the barn, and there were some guys there that had their ropes out from roping, and they were tying the doors shut because the winds were so bad. The doors were swinging open and being open, and they had MacGyvered up some. They had the ropes from roping horses and lassoed the doors, and it was quite a whirlwind.
Yeah, horse people are a resourceful bunch, but if ever in a case of a tornado, bring your oatmeal raisin cookies and weather radio. So you have food and aware of the storm. Who knows? But it was good for us. It was funny. What does show prep look like for you? So we talked about that a little bit, but pretty consistently we clip legs the week before, and then we clip eyes, ears, muzzle, all that other stuff basically 2 days before we show, because our rhythm is clip on Thursday night, pack on Thursday night, leave Friday morning, show Saturday morning. So preparation at home, I have a horse packing list and a people packing list. And now that we have a trailer with a small living quarters, my pack list for people has gotten smaller because stuff just stays out there. But the rhythm doesn't necessarily change for our horse. We work him out usually 6 days a week. So we do that even up until the day that we're packing, not necessarily the day that we're traveling, depending on how far we have to drive.
We work him up until the last day.
Right.
We would prefer to work him at the show too, but that doesn't always happen. Just for his mind. Keep him in the game. Again, it varies depending on if it's a day show or if we're going for overnight. We try to get there early in the day, bathe him early in the afternoon or early evening when we get there. And then depending on who's banding him, either she'll band him or we have someone band him. It just depends on the show and our schedule. We usually band him at night, throw a slinky on. He gets fed and he's good till the next day. Next day show prep's pretty easy then. Pull them up, brush them, whatever product you use on their hair. We use rose oil and show sheen and
hoof black.
Try to keep that on the horse's hoofs and not flying around. Right. That was another funny story, but
we won't go there.
Right.
So we do all those things leading up to, I guess the morning of, we could break that down a little bit. Okay. We use, like you said, rose oil and show sheen. Those are probably our two primary products. And then on his face, we use Vaseline because he seems to have sensitive skin we've tried baby oil, we've tried other products, and he gets a rash or something. He's a delicate flower. So Vaseline seems to work. We get some shine, we get some darkened skin out of it. Probably not as much shine as some of those really glossy products, but it works well enough. We make sure that he's clean and well clipped, and then we put Vaseline around his muzzle and his eyes and his ears. We always make sure that he's got a good coat of fly spray on. And then what I prefer to use at the ring for fly spray, or outside of the ring in the warm-up pen, wherever it's not offensive to other people, but is an aerosol, because it doesn't leave his coat greasy in a different way or a different place or unwanted way, like a spray bottle of fly spray. So I like to use spray bottle at the stalls, but aerosol elsewhere. So it's just a light dusting. Oh, we also use Peppy on his tail, on his body. So he's greased up, shined up by the time he goes into the ring. Trying to think of other prep.
We don't currently use, we haven't yet anyway, used a tail on him. We have one, so we'll incorporate that in his regiment soon. There's a difference of opinion. He's a 2-year-old, so you leave it out so the judges can tell that he's not an age gelding. But I don't know if there's any validity to that. We've got one in and we're going to try it. So
yeah,
we had one for our old horse, so she got it off, and it's not like we haven't used one. We just haven't used one on him yet.
Yep.
Yeah. Usually, get to the show and go get checked in and make sure we're entered in the right classes and see who's in the class. Just because it feels like go time, so it's energy raises in the morning, and everybody's anxious to get their horses ready for show.
Yeah. The other thing I would say we learned quickly, the beginning of, maybe it was this year, we don't have as much space for storage, and we got a different trailer last year to this year. So we use the first horse stall as our mid-tack, so to speak. I think I learned quickly this show season that I'm much happier if I clean and organize the trailer at the end of a horse show rather than wait till the beginning of the next horse show. Because if we get home on a Sunday, I've got a little bit more space and time to at least pull the dirty clothes out, the dirty horse stuff out, reef stock the fly spray or the show sheen or whatever it is on a Sunday, rather than wait until Thursday night when I've worked a full day and then we got to clip a horse, we got to pack a trailer. And so it's nice to engage with the trailer again a week later when it's somewhat tidy. So that's something I learned at the beginning of this year was I don't want to mess with the trailer when we get home. I just want to throw everything in there, get home and be done with it. But I help my future self. I help our future selves. We help our future selves by getting it cleaned up as soon as we get home. I feel like that's part of the prep for the following show. The other thing is we have a pretty consistent set of things that we bring for ourselves to eat at the shows or drink at the shows. And so I try to keep that stuff on hand. We go to Costco and get a bunch of water. We get a bunch of sparkling water. And then we're not constantly having to go and restock those kinds of things. So the snacks, the food, the drinks that we eat at horse shows, I try to maintain a pretty significant amount of that at home so that if the week gets crazy with work, we have stuff to grab and we don't have to eat out the whole time. Because while we like to eat out, it just increases the cost for us. So we try to balance that by bringing food from home.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't talk too much about trailer prep, but that usually gets pulled out on Thursday morning or something. I like to get the trailer out since we've upgraded from the Humble wagon, the green,
the Humble wagon. If you ever saw us at a horse show, we were the only one with a green, all green, inside and out, everywhere was green, so, except for the tires.
Yeah, we're a little more incognito now. But anyway, this trailer
but it withstood the Tulsa tornado.
It did. It didn't go anywhere.
My dad was very happy because
it probably held on the pavement.
It did. Yeah, it was a very safe vehicle for us to be traveling in. Yes. But anyway, weighed 1 million pounds. But yes, we're different trailer now.
Right. So I like to get it out, get it plugged in, so get the fridge started cooling off. And if it's super hot out, get that going. So and she'll go through and make sure that again the food's in there.
Yeah.
stuff's in the trailer for the horse. So we usually start that a day ahead of time before we go.
Yep.
Make sure the trailers or the tires are aired up. If you haven't had a trailer before, make sure you got tires on it that are not ancient. You hear many stories, and my son just traveled with his travel trailer and blew out 2 tires. So make sure you got good tires on there. Yep. So especially for us, most of the time we're traveling, it's hot out. So that increases the stress on your tires. So make sure you got good tires. Make sure, your trailer is in good condition as well as your tow vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll have to do an episode on that sometime.
Okay.
Trailer 101. Okay. So next question. Ready?
Yep,
okay.
Ready.
What's the most challenging aspect of showing, and how do you overcome it together?
I'm
waiting for your answer.
Time and money, right? We've talked about that already, right?
I was glad you didn't say me.
No. So again, we're both working full time. So I have a little more time off than what she does, but trying to schedule shows and determine how much time we can take off to do that, what shows we want to do. For cost, again, that's something we talked about already a little bit. And that's just deciding ahead of time how much time we're going to spend on it and how much money we're going to spend on showing. And then, we move forward and move forward with the plan.
Agreed. Ditto. Time and money. We have another question about money, so we can talk a little bit more about that, just perspective. But yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. So next question, what advice would you give to couples who are just starting out?
Not sure, is this couples just starting out as couples or starting out showing? we have advice for both. Warranted or not.
Let's just say, well, it could go either way, but that's another episode, a marriage episode.
Right.
But we'll skip that for today. Let's talk about couples who are just starting out showing.
Okay.
Well, something that we didn't do, but it turned out greater than I anticipated, was the way we would share the workload. So we kind of talked about that in an earlier question about how do we share the workload and prep for the horse shows? Yes, we do. We didn't necessarily establish that ahead of time. But I think that's an important thing to consider is because I honestly don't know how we could do this if he didn't do as much as he does. I don't think I could do more of the work. We spread it pretty evenly.
Yeah. Without putting other couples in a box, we can only speak for what we do and how we manage. I know she titled this one Horse Show Husbands. So I know, well, I don't know. I suspect there's other couples that the husband is not as involved, or one or the other is maybe not as involved in the showing or in the fitting of the horse. For us, it works really well. I don't care to be in the show ring, and that's part of what she loves to do. So for me, I love the fitting of the horse, getting him ready. I feel like my job, so to speak, is done when she takes him into the ring. So I enjoy as much of the work as what she does. So we enjoy the background work just as much. I would say advice is to set expectations, sit down ahead of time. If you're just getting started, determine what each of your roles, what your goals and desires are for showing a horse, for that horse, for the show season, what each of your expectations are. And if you set expectations, they're going to vary. Like we try to set expectations of who's going to do what, and it just never seems to work out. But knowing what the other person desires to get out of it helps when I know what she desires to get out of it, helps me help fill a need, and she the same for me. Mm-hmm. I did show once this year. I'll just throw that out there.
It happened.
It happened. I still don't see that as a steady diet in my future, but that's good. It works out well for us.
Yeah.
Anything to add? Since she's thinking,
no.
Do what you can do. Like if it's overwhelming to think of going to Fort Worth, for example, the World Show, having to come up with $7,000 or whatever that budget is, go to shows that you can go to. There, it doesn't have to be a breed show. If it's if all you can swing is an open show that's an hour from your house, then go do that. Like get out there and show. You don't know what you don't know. So go to the show, see what's happening there. And maybe that's, as we're talking about couples just starting out, maybe that's a better place to start out.
Sure.
We had some open show experience. Used to show a lot. Our aged mare now did a lot of open showing. We just went to the county fair locally and some other shows that were close by. And that was, for us at that time, it was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good talk.
Thanks.
Good talk. So then next question, how do you handle travel and training schedule with full-time jobs? I think we've touched on this a couple of different ways, but when we made the commitment to go as often as we could based on vacation time or finances, that informed a workout schedule as well as chore schedule. Like when we first got our horse, we fed him 3 times a day, but we didn't have somebody feeding lunch in the middle of the day. So we would feed breakfast at 5 and we would feed lunch at 4:30 and dinner at 9 o'clock. And then, like you said, my father-in-law comes in the middle of the day to feed lunch. And so that made a 4:30 in the afternoon workout possible, which opened up some space in our evening. So it's kind of like playing Tetris. Like you look at the time of day that you leave for work and the time of day that you get home, or maybe you work from home and it provides some additional flexibility, but you only have every single one of us have the same number of hours in a day. So you look at your day and decide how hard do you want to work? How successful do you want to try to be? And if you want to knock it out of the park, do everything you can, try as hard as you can, go to as many shows as you can, that takes more and more and more and more work. And therefore, you get up earlier in the morning and you stay up later at night. And it's just the nature of the business. So during show season, like you said, we're all in. So we're up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we don't come in the house until after 9 o'clock usually. Shower, go to bed, start all over again. And the weekends are not like that. The weekends we don't get up at 4:30, but we're still feeding by 5, anywhere from 5 to 6 o'clock. Usually we're still up early. Travel and training schedule with full-time jobs. We have to work within vacation time that we have at work. And so for the shows that are closer, we go the day before. We might work a half a day and then arrive to a show in the late afternoon or evening. But ideally, we have a full day at the show site before we show the next day. And currently, we've not done a long trip and broken it into like 2 days. We've driven straight through to Tulsa, to Fort Worth, Oklahoma City. We've done those trips straight through. We're considering something maybe longer. We might do an overnight on the way there, but really it's just deciding what our goals are. What are the boundaries that we have with our jobs? Because we can't do the showing without the jobs. And we don't have an indoor arena. So we're also at the mercy of the weather. So we do as many workouts as we can, making sure that he gets days off. And it's not.
Yeah. we had a saying last year, we'll see you in the truck, because last year we did a lot of long trips, and that's what it felt like. It felt like
Yeah,
our
we'll just see you.
we were going from 5 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, and crash in bed,
Yeah.
and then we would talk in the truck. Talk.
Yeah. Yeah. We would feel like the truck was our next opportunity to get caught up with one another. So, yeah, it's not easy. It's hard. It's tiring. We're not getting any younger, but we love it enough. It's enough of a priority for us in this season of life that we're just working as hard as we can to do it. So, is there any way for amateurs to enjoy the rich man's sport? Do you have any tricks to make costs more manageable? So I would say, actually, back to that negative energy question. What do we hear? How do we handle negative energy in and out of the pen? So it's not unusual for people to talk about two things. It's too expensive. This sport is only for rich people. And it's people being offended that you have to pay to play. So in both of those realms, how do you define rich? I don't know. We feel rich in blessings and the fact that we're even able to do this in the first place. So we don't consider ourselves rich. We work hard. We have good jobs, but we spend a significant amount of what we make to show. And it's because we choose to do that. Nobody's telling us we have to, obviously. So is it a rich man sport? I feel like that comes from a different place in a person's history, heart, what have you. Like it's kind of a vague way to describe maybe being offended by how expensive something is. But the other thing I think about is pay to play. So yes, we have to pay to play. We don't pay any more or less than anybody else. And in any hobby like this, if you have a boat, if you have a camper, like anything that you decide to do, you have to pay to participate. You buy the equipment, you buy the animal. In this case, you have to pay to maintain it. There's supplies that you have to buy and equipment that you have to buy and clothes and vehicle. And it's all by choice. And so is there any way for us to enjoy it? Yeah, we enjoy it to the extent that our budget allows. Do we have any tricks to make costs more manageable? We do things like I use a spending plan so that we can plan household type things to the best of your ability, right? You don't plan for emergency situations with your house or your horse. But it helps us to know what we're actually spending in different areas so that if we can make different choices, we do. We do things like bring our own food to horse shows. I band as often as possible to save that little bit of money. We have our horse at home. That's a financial decision and it's a personal preference. Not because we don't like trainers, not because we don't have a trainer that we would trust with our horse. It's really that we enjoy the work that's involved. And so we choose to do that. Does it save us money? Absolutely. But we still have to buy our own hay, shavings, all that stuff. So tricks to make costs more manageable. We share a tack stall when we can. Trying to think of other things at the horse shows or involved. Like we don't skimp on shavings to save money. That would potentially hurt us in the long run to have a horse with hock sores or what have you, because there's not enough shavings. So we don't take shortcuts, but anything else you can think of?
No, I mean, I think if you can make it a day show, where you're driving down, if it's close enough, you can do that. That saves you on, a camper spot, so to speak, or a hotel, or even food. It's options that you can do. One thing to remember when you talk about cost of shows and stuff, all these clubs are trying just to stay afloat. Because the people who run the clubs are volunteers most of the time and love horses as much as you and I do. and
Mm-hmm.
they're just trying to keep a horse show going so that we can do what we love. So keep that in mind. It's a perspective thing, like
Yeah.
especially if it's your local club. Go support them. Do what you can to afford that show, but remember that most of these places are just trying to keep the shows going so we can go do what we love and show the horses, the animals that we love to show.
Yeah. Amen. Support your local clubs. Um, okay. Last question. If you could pick an ideal horse based on pedigree alone, what sire or dam line would you choose? This is an interesting question for us, but I'll speak for myself. I don't feel like I know enough about pedigrees. So if I really was picking an ideal horse based on pedigree, keeping in mind that ideal for me is not necessarily ideal for somebody else, right? My ideal is full of my opinions and my biases. I don't feel like we've been in it long enough to have strong preferences of the sire or dam line, where obviously you wouldn't necessarily pick a horse based on just its pedigree. Some people probably do. I don't know. We can't envision that because we like to see the horse and get to know a lot more about it than just its pedigree. But when we go to horse shows, when I specifically think about like the Halter Million last year, you get to see a lot of babies who are by the same stallion. It's kind of like some of the futurity conversations we've had in previous episodes, where futurities are a great place for you to go and see multiple babies by the same sire. And that's particularly predominant at the World Show, where you see a bunch of babies by Invincible. You see a bunch of babies by CF Peacemaker, a couple of CR Peacemaker. Sorry. Anyway, so you get to see multiple babies by the same sire, and not much attention or emphasis is placed on the dam. And so that's something that we're learning, that I'm learning as we go along, that I want to dig in a little bit more to the dam side, begin to identify babies that are by the same dam. It's easy to know what babies are out of what or by what sire because we promote the stallions so much. The ads are all about the stallions. So who would I pick based on pedigree alone? There are a couple of stallions. Again, those are the ones that you see lots of pictures of and lots of babies by the same stallion. There are a couple of stallions that I like. For me, it doesn't come with any sort of long-standing history or success at picking stallions. I do like Invincible. I do like Sierra Peacemaker. But both of those stallions have some young stallions by them who are up and coming, like Evincing and MM Peace and Harmony, that I love seeing as well. So my opinion in the grand scheme is not doesn't carry any weight or of tremendous value. Yeah. Those are two stallions out of many, many. We have a horse that's by Virtuous, and what we have learned about Virtuous by owning a Virtuous baby is his babies have really good minds. They're great travelers. And from a body perspective, they're typically well balanced. That's what we're learning about Virtuous babies. Our horse is pretty well balanced. He doesn't necessarily have the most modern frame, but he's well balanced. And so that's part of the judging criteria, right? Is balance. So we have a lot to learn. We're starting maybe to hone in on some things that we prefer. And I have paid attention to a couple of folks on Facebook who are not stallion owners, but they have lots of mares. And I'm learning from them, like Michelle and Scott Peterson, for example, that have a great band of brood mares. And they talk a lot about the value and the importance of the brood mare. And they always identify who their mares are by. And so I learn, by seeing those names over and over again, kind of what they end up looking like. There's a lot of couples like that who are breeding, and they're helping to educate people like us.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. My personality is if I start digging in on looking at pedigrees and sire and dam lines, then I'm shot.
I would never see him again.
I'm in it, and I'm gonna be ready to buy, and we're not there. So until we're in that, and I'll say again, this is for us. I'm not typically one that's going to purchase on pedigree alone. You know, she talked about a little bit. We're going to look and see. We want to see what the horse looks like, what kind of babies they're putting out, and then those that has to match the kind of body style we're looking for. Also, I'll throw this in there. You know, if we're looking for a filly, for example, I'm going to look for one that doesn't have any of the letters, no alphabets on it. So that, you know, the testing is going to be, the DNA testing is going to be all negative for, then that's just me. There's people that breeders and trainers that doesn't bother at all. And that's fine. That's just a way that you are at. Yeah. So, you know, you want to look at that as it is, you know, having an HYPP baby. Is that something you want to manage? Or if you don't want to deal with that, then, you know, that can steer the direction you look as well. So there's a lot to it. Yeah. For us, you know, there's, as you look at, as she said, you know, most of the stallions are what get promoted, and there's ones that are hot right now. So those are good stallions, but there's also a lot of good stallions out there, I believe. You know, as we've heard from many people on the podcast, the ship semen has shrunk the number of stallions that seem to get promoted. There's not as many local ones that are prominent now as maybe what used to be. So,
right.
Yeah, I feel like, me especially, I'm pedigree dumb. I don't know long lines and where that comes from. So sorry, we're not very helpful in answering that question as written, but
right.
That's who we are. And right or wrong, we're doing learning. We're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love pouring our energy, and we love pouring our finances into this hobby. It's
love. I would use that term lightly.
Right. It's opportunity for us to do something we love together. And so there's worth in that.
Yeah, for sure. So that is the conclusion, or we've reached the conclusion of our questions that you guys submitted. So thank you again for submitting questions. We're trying this out. So we'll do one again in the fall. We'll have a person or a couple of people, maybe a panel. We will rely on you for submitting the questions that you want the group to answer. So we don't have the next group of guests selected yet, but this fall we'll have another Q&A session interspersed among our other regular episode selection. So thank you for listening. Thanks for submitting your questions, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hey, if you're an amateur or a professional willing to share your story or bring content that helps us with our halter horses, you can email me at fitforhalter@gmail.com.